Is this thing on? Yes! Turn it up! Hello. Welcome back to Random Eclectic Too Much. This is another episode of TMI, or in the Too Much aspect. I feel like my YouTube name is kind of whack. Maybe I'll change it. I don't know. So for this TMI, I just want to talk about the pandemic and how insanely stupid Americans are. Oh God, like where to even begin? So as you saw in the last TMI, people are making up all kinds of excuses as to why it's their God-given American right not to wear a mask. And I'm still just kind of blown away by this refusal. This is downright refusal to do anything to prevent further infection. Like, I remember pretty early on in the pandemic when it was still kind of questionable whether or not it would spread outside of China, so maybe about January. And, you know, the precautions had started anyways because it was flu season. But people were legitimately talking on Twitter and getting like thousands and hundreds of thousands of likes about their preference for hand sanitizer instead of just washing their damn hands. And I'm just like, why do I live in a country that the education system is so bad that they question the very basic nature of washing one's hands, like, to stay healthy? Why is that? What happened along the way that we now live in a country where people have a hard time thinking washing one's hands is too cumbersome? 30 seconds is just too long, and hand sanitizer is faster. That was the tweet, by the way. Someone was like, hand sanitizer is faster. So then along the way, there just has been stupidity after stupidity after ignorance after stupidity. It is not helped by the fact that we do not have any sort of cohesive government mandates across the nation. We have states who are trying their best, and then we have states who looked at the numbers and, well, you know, I'm not going to make the same joke twice here, but looked at the numbers, looked at the economy, thought about it and said, you know what? I'll take my chances with the COVID, actually, because we can't, you know, we can't keep people at home because they're going to go crazy. Someone also on Twitter, I don't know, maybe this episode's just going to be about Twitter and things I've seen on Twitter, because I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I used to spend a lot of time on Facebook, and Facebook's still considerably more cursed. But I saw someone say on Twitter, and I thought that they were kind of onto something. If you frame COVID-19 in terms of race, it's interesting that white people are for the first time in their lives experiencing their, I guess, rights being infringed upon by, well, a virus, which is like, come on. Like, why does it take a virus for you to stay at home? But I'm also seeing it happen like real time with like people are actually losing their minds because they have to stay home. You know, in some ways I shouldn't be so, I guess, callous, or I don't know. I should be more empathetic to people having a hard time with quarantine because, you know, I guess I'm like blessed to be the kind of person who literally, it doesn't bother me at all one bit. I mean, my body's definitely atrophying or atrophying. I don't know how to say that word. My body is definitely losing muscles definition in places. And I have back pain due to sitting all day, because I used to use commuting as my main form of exercise, because in New York there are thousands of stairs in the subway and thousands of steps to take to get between my front door and my job. So I've gone from walking about a mile a day to not doing that. So my back is suffering. Not to mention that I'm like working in bed. But besides that, it doesn't bother me one bit to stay inside, because yeah, I might miss bar hopping, but it's not something that like I need to do. Like I'm very much a person who's high key entertained by myself. Whereas I'm seeing other people just like have total massive mental health breakdowns for the fact that they cannot socialize outdoors. And on one hand, I'm like, yeah, it really does suck. But on the other hand, I feel that it's kind of insanely reckless and dangerous to keep trying to make it safe to go outside somehow, instead of just doing the absolute most we can to stop the spread of this virus so that people don't get sick and die. And part of it too is, maybe if we lived in a country like, say, South Korea, where, the government actually did their jobs and the culture actually, considered the lives and livelihood of other people, we could be in a situation where, going outside with masks on made sense and it was normalized. And the testing, they have literal walk-up testing sites, and you get the test results back in like 24 hours or less. Like, you can't even begin to imagine that kind of effectiveness in the United States, because we dropped the ball and we just never got up. Where we blew a 42 lead, or whatever the sports joke is. I don't know. I hate football anyways. There's only one football in my life, and that's soccer. But we blew the lead. Like, we knew the virus was coming in at least December. We knew that it wasn't going to be contained in China, because we know that China has a vested interest in not revealing / not knowing the true spread of that virus as it was happening. We knew, and we did nothing. The United States federal government absolutely does not care about humanity. It cares about profits. And that's where what you have in this situation is, and there's a really great episode of the podcast, Citations Needed, about this, where you have capitalism essentially creating the perfect storm of death, because we've spent too much time emphasizing this need for consumption, that people are more concerned about like items and jobs and things, that we can't even do the basic thing of coming together to fight a virus. Americans are also inherently selfish and stupid, so that's like also playing a role. And I gotta say, I don't know if we can be helped. Like, when Donald Trump won the election in 2016, there was a very strong consideration upon most people to expatriate, because, it made sense. You don't want to live in a country that is now like this embarrassing. I mean, that famous newsroom cold open came out in like 2010 about how America's not the greatest country on earth. But like, as a black person, of course I knew that America has not been great. It's like not a great place to live. But the personality of the American is so inherently stupid now. Like, what's that famous scene from, I think it's Bowling from Columbine, or maybe even Capitalism, a Love Story, the documentary, where the documentarian, whose name is escaping me, goes up to random people in America and asks them to either recite the Pledge of Allegiance or to sing the national anthem, and they can't do it. But they definitely know the McDonald's Big Mac song. And it's stuff like that like I understand how, you know, it works to prove a larger point, and it can be problematic in ways. But I also just gotta acknowledge, like, Americans are freaking stupid. And part of it is the crumbling education system that is tied to, taxes, which is like so creates, this situation where the most educated people in the country happen to also be the rich people. And so then you have all these dumb idiots who can't get educated running around telling and spreading misinformation. You can't trust the government to do the right thing because you also have Trump on national television saying drink bleach. So of course I get it. Like, to a certain extent, there's just, can we be saved from ourselves and our stupidity? I don't know, because people won't even listen to scientists anymore without being like, oh, this is just like the liberal agenda, or this is a pandemic, and you're just going to give us a vaccine that's like full of nasty whatever to surveil us, kill, whatever conspiracy theory you can think. And meanwhile, scientists are just like, dude, I just don't want people to die. But yeah, as this pandemic goes on, I think I became quite bitter about the pandemic this week and how people are behaving, particularly because there's just this like rush to get back to normalcy, and that normalcy doesn't exist anymore. There is not a normal world anymore. It isn't there. And people need to accept that. Like, this idea that you're going to somehow, be able to, in 6 months, go back to work and do work the same way that you did it before there was a pandemic is, you're truly lost. And I'm sorry, but you need to accept that we are in unprecedented times. Things have vastly changed, and America's dropped the ball. And I don't know, I'm at a point where I don't want to live here anymore. Like, if I could figure out a way to do my job in another country, I'd probably strongly consider it, because this ain't it. So, besides the pandemic, other stupid things that have happened this week that I need to, vent about, is the situation with Megan Thee Stallion. So I'm a huge Megan Thee Stallion fan. I love her rap. I love her look. I love her personality. I think she's great. She's definitely become one of my favorite rappers very quickly. So we still don't 100% know what happened with this situation with Tory Lanez, who is the guy that probably shot her in the foot. We don't know that for certain. All that we know kind of is that Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion and some other people were in a car, and the people in the car probably tried to get out of the car, and then shots rang out, and Tory Lanez was arrested for having a gun, and Megan Thee Stallion was injured, and she says that she was shot in the feet. So, first off, with this situation, immediately men were making the most disgusting, vile, gross jokes about not only Tory and Megan, but also imagining some situation in which they could possibly be performing surgery on Megan Thee Stallion, and they'd get to grope her or something. It was just so disgusting to see those tweets, and I'm just like, do you guys just don't think of her as a person? You don't think of women as people, because if a male rapper got shot, this is not the reaction that women have, or even anyone else. It is particularly disgusting to me because it tells me that when women are hurt and they're trying to, tell people that they're hurt, what do we get? We get jokes, and we get to be sexualized, and even when we ask to be taken seriously, which is what Megan did, she came back to social media to explain the situation and said, please stop making jokes about this. You have people like 50 Cent who shared his really terrible meme about the situation and then implied that like Tory Lanez was like pimping her out and that's why he shot her. And I'm just like, sir, I love the first album by 50 Cent, but this is just not like it was just, I don't even have the words to describe how infuriating men were being about this situation. If someone is shot, don't make jokes about it because they probably could have died. It's not funny. It's not a joke. And this speaks to a larger issue in the Black community, which I get. We are a culture of people who like to use humor to, cope with very painful situations. This is why most Black comedians have race routines, because racism, the way we cope with it, often involves comedy. And ContraPoints, did a great video about trans jokes and how related they are to the darkness. It's the tension between, punching up comedy and, the truth hurting a little bit. But I digress. You should watch that video for sure, though. But we have this issue in the Black community that I'm kind of tired of us ignoring, which is that we cross the line so many times for the sake of a joke. And at some point, I'm just like, when are we as a community going to acknowledge that writ large, sometimes the way that we make jokes are not cute and actually really bad and actually really damaging? Like, when are we as a community going to say to each other, you know what, maybe roasting culture is actually kind of damaging to people who get roasted, but I'm sure some of you are already saying we need to grow our thicker skin, especially if you're going to be online. Listen, I'm not even talking about like y'all roasting me. Roast me, whatever. You're going to do it anyways. You always do. I'm just saying you need to think more strategically about the roasting, because you are effectively denying Megan's humanity when you make jokes about her being shot in the foot. Like, it's a very simple concept to have human decency, and I wonder why it's so hard for people to do that. This is getting really long, so I'm just gonna stop here. I did have some thoughts about like stan culture being really terrible during COVID, but that could probably be its own video. So anyways, the thing that's keeping me happy this week is that I might finally be able to get my hands on a Nintendo Switch and play Paper Mario Origami version, the one that just came out. It looks really cute, really fun. I'm really excited. I hope I'm able to get that Switch. Switches have been MIA since Animal Crossing came out. Everybody's at home. They bought the stock up, and coronavirus has pretty much ended the supply chain there, but fingers crossed. And I'll see you guys next time.